This is happiness, to be everything at once. Be unblinded, be unlearned, be unbridled and unburned.
Hey guys, welcome back to a brand new episode of Mood Prep. My name is Dave Dixon, and I'm not sure when it was. I remember last year sometime talking to my coach, and he talked about the difference between living artisanally versus intentionally, right? And that's break that down. That's to live in intention, or live for attention, right? Which is interesting, and it definitely can get broken down further than that, than simply just living in or living for. But there's a big distinction there, right? It's sort of going, what's taking my attention at the moment, and I'm going to make decisions based on that, which sometimes can be confused as living in the moment. But it's not really living in the moment, because you're always making a decision based on the attention of what may happen in the next moment, as opposed to just being here now. It's really different, right? And so living with intention isn't simply just being here now either, and living in the moment peacefully as it is. Living in intention is actually the ability to choose what your purpose is. So when we live in intention, we're choosing what our intent is about whatever it is that we choose to do. The powerful thing there is that we choose to do it, right? And so we may choose to sit back and just observe and watch the world. And so that's not necessarily living for attention as much as it is that's my intention for what's happening. It's the same when really choosing a life purpose, and sometimes people go, I didn't get to choose it chose me. It's like, okay, well, maybe there's a part of that. Maybe the thing can go both ways. It depends how you want to see it yourself. But the key thing here is that when we give our life meaning, when we have a purpose to work towards, a direction, we start to be able to choose. We now have the ability to choose to live in intention towards that purpose, whatever that is for us. And so whenever we make decisions away from the intention of that purpose, we're now living for attention. Now, some people, let's get this clear. Let's look at the examples for attention. So posting, the easy one nowadays is posting on Instagram or Facebook for attention, is to do something so that you get attention. There's that easy example. But the other thing is that if you're choosing to do things, even better, if you're not choosing to do things because you don't want attention, you're still living for attention. It's just that you're avoiding it. It's the same thing. If you're living in intention, the attention is irrelevant. It'll happen or it won't happen. It doesn't matter, because you're living in intention for your purpose. And so that's to actually live. Whereas if we're avoiding things, I don't want to post on social media because I don't want the attention, it's still living for attention because it's what's governing your decisions. Whether if intention is governing your decisions, you're able to post and let be what be, whatever happens, because you're trusting in what is intuitive to yourself, but also what is your intention behind your purpose. And so all of a sudden, the idea of posting on social media or speaking in front of people or learning how to fumble your way through a podcast or your writing or whatever it may be, or your studies, doesn't matter what it is, if you're able to move through that and let the attention be good, bad, whatever you want to call it, is irrelevant. Let the attention be whatever the attention is, but live in your intention for the purpose that you have decided upon. That's living in intention. There's, that's where people often think, like I mentioned earlier, is that it's just like, oh, well, if I'm not on social media, or if I can avoid something like that, I will, because those people are just narcissistic. It's like, there's narcissism in thinking that everyone's going to fucking make judgment of whatever the hell you post as well. So not posting is still the same shit. So posting or not posting, and you're making the decision, it's still stemming from the same idea of, I'm that fucking important. Now, maybe you are really important. I'm not trying to put that down. You'll catch up with me one day and I'm like, everyone's a special little soul. But my whole point here is that there's still narcissism in not posting. If the intention behind it is simply because I don't want the judgment. It's like, because I don't think I'm that important. So, but you think you're important enough for people to judge you. Like, can you see the complex here? Can you see the duality in it? It's all rubbish. Whereas if we can shift that aside, if we can move the attention aside and simply choose, start to really fucking choose what our intention is behind our purpose, it starts to govern our actions. Now we're living our life in intention. And it feels differently because you're not trying to mentally justify to yourself why you are doing something or not doing something. You're not trying to bring this up in conversation to other people. You're just being, you're just doing, and you're letting life happen as it is, because you start to realize that these things that you're either saying or not saying is either for attention or against it, and neither of that's it's irrelevant. To move away from living for attention, right, to moving to living in intention. And that way you can start to align yourself with what's true to you, because often the whole for attention thing is the need to be seen. Often, not always. Because sometimes it's, the need to be seen and the need to be small and quiet is the same thing, right? They're both often gifted to us, really, if you want to think about it, in our childhood. So that if I'm seen, if I'm achieving, maybe, then that's when I get love. Children are meant to be seen, not heard. So shut up, don't say anything, not interested to hear it. Adults are speaking. All of these things start to get people to think that, okay, well, if I'm quiet, then people will like me. I don't get in trouble. So if I'm not in trouble, then maybe people like me. And you start to see how people can form their personality and their subjective experience based off all these sorts of things about how they're creating value or meaning from such a young age. So this is so powerful. So as an adult now, I'm assuming you guys are adults listening to this. If not, kudos to you as well. But as adults now, we start to have a choice on how we can mold our personality to start working and be more resourceful for us. And part of that is like this idea, like I said earlier on, that if we're simply avoiding attention, avoiding the limelight, and calling it humility, more often than not, we're still lying to ourselves. It's not about humility, because humility is simply living in intention, because then you're living for a truer purpose which is larger than yourself, and that's fucking humble. And so if you have a talent and you're just hiding it from the world because you don't want attention and you think that's humble, that's horseshit. That's not humility at all, right? That's a form of weakness. It's a form of conformity. And so you're not doing anyone, especially yourself, but anyone else, any form of, like, I don't know, gifts by what's it called, or a favor, by playing small and choosing to live for attention, or by attention is another way to think about it, right? So just because you're pulling back, and I'm not saying everyone needs to go out there and post on social media tomorrow, because it could be the same thing. Is it coming from for attention, or is it coming because that's truly what you decided to be, your life fucking purpose, and what's true to you, and you're happy to fumble and stumble your way through that whole process because you deem it worthy enough to look silly? You often find that you won't look silly, by the way. We suffer more in imagination than we do in reality. So it's just this beautiful opportunity to really start to see this freedom that living in intention gives us, because it's freedom of expression of ourselves, rather than first making a decision based upon this filter of what other people may or may not think of us. So whether we're trying to get attention on social media or we're trying to avoid it in real life or whatever it may be, it is the same thing, because the decision is still being governed by whether or not somebody's going to be judging us and giving us attention. And that's something to really consider and think about. Is like, where are my behaviors coming from? If I'm true to myself, if I'm being honest, is it coming from this idea of trying to get some sort of attention or approval? Or is it coming from this idea that, I don't need that, so I don't need to sort of prove anything to anyone, but really I want somebody to be able to do that, or I'm just going to give it to myself even though I'm not prepared to get feedback from others. Like, there's so many different frames that could be fitting in here. The key thing is that, are you allowing your behaviors and actions to be governed by an intention and a purpose that you have chosen in your adult life? Have you? It's a great question. I'd love to know your answers, and you can let me know by jumping on Facebook and searching Moot Prep Online, joining the group there and joining the conversation or starting a conversation. I'd love to hear what you're getting out of this podcast, and also if there's something that you come across that you're not sure about, I'd love to hear what that is and maybe expand on it more. Otherwise, if you found this podcast beneficial, it would mean the world to me if you would pass it on to someone else that you think would also find it beneficial. Otherwise, team, that's it. That's me. I'm done. Until tomorrow, peace and pizza, kick today in the dick, slay the dragon. I'll see you soon.
Happiness to be everything at once. Be unblinded, be unlearned, be unbridled and unburned.